Black boy interrupts judge in court and says 2 words. The judge turns pale. The courtroom was so silent. It felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Every person in the gallery sat motionless, as though the wrong movement might tip the scales of justice. At the center of it all stood Marcus Dean, a 14-year-old boy, his clothes a mismatched attempt at formality, his hands trembling as he gripped the edges of the defense table. Opposite him, Judge Harold Clifton sat high on the bench, his presence as towering as the marble columns in the courtroom. A man known for his unwavering demeanor, he had a reputation, whispered in hushed tones, of being less than fair when it came to cases like this. Everyone could sense it. This wasn't just a trial, it was a performance, where the final act had been rehearsed long before Marcus ever stepped foot inside that cold, suffocating chamber. The judge's voice cut through the silence like a blade. You stand accused of burglary, assault, and destruction of property. Do you understand these charges? Marcus hesitated, his voice barely more than a whisper. Yes, Your Honor. His mother, Danielle, sat in the front row, gripping the armrest so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She had spent Marcus's whole life trying to shield him from the unforgiving world, and now she was watching helplessly as it swallowed him whole. The prosecutor, John Baker, smirked as he shuffled his papers, as if he had already won. He had the confidence of a man who had seen this scenario unfold 100 times before. He painted Marcus as a menace, an unruly youth with no regard for the law. The newspapers had already played their part in the narrative, branding Marcus as nothing more than another statistic. The so-called witnesses took the stand. 2 people claimed they saw Marcus smashing store windows, but their testimonies didn't align. One said he wore a blue hoodie, the other said red. One claimed he had curly hair, the other insisted it was straight. When Marcus's lawyer, Mr. Lewis, pointed out these contradictions, the judge barely reacted, but when the prosecutor rephrased their statements to clean up the inconsistencies, the judge nodded approvingly. Danielle felt her stomach twist. This wasn't a trial. It was a ritual, one designed to chew up her son and spit him out guilty. When Marcus took the stand, his voice wavered, but his words were steady. I was home that night, helping my mom with her sewing orders. We stayed up late because she was behind on work. The judge leaned forward. Do you have any proof? Marcus hesitated. He had no receipts, no surveillance footage, nothing but his word. He swallowed hard. The judge's lips pressed into a thin line. Then perhaps you should consider the consequences of lying under oath. Danielle flinched at the harshness in his tone. Mr. Lewis tried to fight back, calling a neighbor, Mrs. Parker, to testify. She swore she heard Danielle's sewing machine running late into the night. She even recalled Marcus knocking on her door around 11 p.m. to borrow extra thread. The prosecutor immediately objected. The witness is biased. He scoffed. The judge nodded. Another lifeline. Cut. Marcus glanced at the jury. One man glared at him like he was already in handcuffs. Another woman sat motionless, showing neither sympathy nor doubt. The weight of the world pressed down on his chest. The prosecutor delivered his final argument, spinning a story about Marcus being a product of his environment. A boy raised without a father. A boy destined for trouble. Danielle bit her lips so hard she tasted blood. Judge Clifton cleared his throat. This court has heard the evidence. Marcus's pulse pounded in his ears. He could see it happening. The moment his life would change forever, the gavel would drop. The sentence would be handed down, and he would become another name lost to a broken system. Number A fire ignited inside him. His legs moved before his mind caught up, and suddenly, he was on his feet. Gasps filled the room. The judge's eyes burned with outrage. Marcus's heart hammered. He couldn't stop now. His voice broke, but his words were clear. Wait, I have proof. A shudder ran through the courtroom. The judge's face lost its color. The prosecutor's confidence faltered. Judge Clifton's voice wavered. Marcus's hands shook as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small digital camera. I have a recording. It shows I was home all night. The murmurs in the courtroom swelled to a roar. The judge, so composed before, shifted uncomfortably. The prosecutor spluttered, demanding the evidence be thrown out, but Mr. Lewis stood firm. This is new evidence, Your Honor. It must be reviewed. The judge hesitated. Then, finally, he muttered. A projector was set up. The footage played. The room fell into an eerie stillness. Screen. The modest living room flickered to life. Fabric scraps littered the table. The sewing machine whirred softly. Danielle sat there, exhausted, stitching frantically. And there was Marcus, moving in and out of the frame, passing her supplies, adjusting measurements, checking the clock. 11:57 p.m., midnight, 1:15 a.m. Marcus never left the apartment. The air grew thick. One by one, those who had been so sure of his guilt fell into stunned silence. Judge Clifton's fingers curled around his gavel. Knuckles white, his usual stern expression cracked, revealing something Marcus had never seen before. Uncertainty. Mr. Lewis rose. Your Honor, this evidence contradicts all claims against my client. We request an immediate dismissal. The prosecutor, for the first time that day, was at a loss for words. Judge Clifton's throat bobbed. He looked at the video again, then at Marcus. The power in the room had shifted, or the first time. The boy was in control. Finally, the judge muttered, "Court is adjourned." He stood so abruptly that his gavel nearly toppled off the bench. Without another word, he turned and left, his face drained of color. Danielle gasped as relief crashed over her. Marcus barely registered the chaos around him. His mother sobbing, journalists scrambling to record the scene, the prosecutor storming away in frustration. The system had almost swallowed him whole, but those 3 words, "I have proof," had shattered it. The last person to leave the courtroom was the bailiff. He paused, glancing at the judge's empty chair. The truth had won, because as Marcus stepped out into the world again, he knew one thing. Some people would never want him to prove his innocence, and they weren't done with him yet. What happens next? Let me know in the comments.